Is that
Sacred.
ISIS?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sacred contracts.
I'm sure karma will come into play with God today.
For sure.
It's all the same.
I think it definitely come into play.
That is really funny.
I love it.
She's been so present in my sessions.
Who was that again?
Isis.
Oh, I love Isis.
She is so present.
I love her.
Do you remember one of our
I'm going to say it really quick.
Okay.
Welcome to Motherland.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome.
All right, talk about Isis. She's all about like
Isis. So the invocation for Isis is rise into your power and purpose, heal the mother wound.
Oh my God. That's so
you know that Isis was said to be Mary is the reincarnation of Isis.
Did not know that.
You know that? The divine feminine. Oh. So a lot of the teachings of the Bible, they say, if you don't, here I'm awake, they come from the teachings of Isis.
Yeah, I have heard stuff like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So way back in the day before Christianity was, there was a religion, and it was the Essenes, yeah, Essenes, and that was the teachings of like Isis and how they taught, about like the understanding of the wholeness and everything that like Jesus Christ represented, and then that formed into Christianity later. I don't know, I can go through a whole spiral of it.
No, that's dope. I love learning new things like that, which are so huge, because when I channel, I said in the past year, Isis has been so present. The person or the being who would come in afterwards typically is Mother Mary. And I'm like, wow, you got a whole team here, right? Talking to my people. And that makes total sense.
Yeah, look at them. They have the same energy.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, medicine woman energy. When Oneika pulled that and she was about to tell us what's going on with her mom, clearly we'll take this off the podcast, but what's going on?
Oh, nothing. I just, I was having this feeling. I'm like, is she angry with me? Because she hadn't been, like talking in our group chat.
Yeah. You're like, I'm feeling a disconnect. What's up?
Yeah. And so like energetically, I've been feeling like I really sort of need to clear any energy that feels stuck or in my way. So confronting things directly. She was like, I'm not mad at you. I thought you were mad at me. I know, mothers and daughters, right?
Yeah. Like, what? Yeah, I could see her
totally fine, too. But I think I just needed to clear it for myself. I think it was what I was feeling, but it's just funny because that I pulled that.
That's a lot. Yeah, that is some funny shit. And it's motherland. Here we are.
I almost was like, oh, we'll talk about mother wounds. That's before I almost thought about boundaries and mothers. Like, that's such a thing.
That's a really good. That's actually let's go there because I have.
Okay, let's go there.
Yeah.
Look at Oneika.
It kind of goes with everything that we're trying to talk about.
We all hate. You know what? I think we always know our topic by whoever's face is like. I don't want to.
It's like that's the one. That's the one. Ooh. Okay, someone start here. Someone start.
I mean, really quickly, do you want me to cut out what you just mentioned with your mom before we continue? Because I have okay, cool.
Yeah. Just in case she listens. I don't want her to get her panties in a bunch.
Yeah, good thing.
But I'll talk about other stuff.
Okay, perfect. So I guess let's just start.
I just got coffee in my eye.
A little nervous. A little nervous.
Shit.
I think, okay, so our topic is boundaries and moms. Shit.
That's such a good topic. Because
I'm laughing out of nervousness too.
So I'm learning all this shit about karma.
Yeah, I guess it has a mix of karma in it too. I think last year was my year with that.
Yeah.
That was my year. Boundaries and my mom. But I come from Hispanic mom. So I say that as they're very opinionated, very strong, probably really similar to Filipino moms or any, like, they're just
Or
very
any mom.
opinioted.
Or
Yeah,
any
very
mom.
I don't know about any mom, because some cultures don't have where their moms
Yeah.
are so like, you know, for me in my culture, the grandmother becomes the one that kind of,
The matriarch. Yeah, my mom's the
yeah,
matriarch on her side of the family now because she's
yeah.
the
So my
yeah.
mom had to learn how to like respect my rules, because even though I am 41, I'm still very much treated like I am 20.
Mhm.
Like I have no idea how to rate. She'll send me messages, you know, like, make sure you know, give your child a jacket and make sure you blah blah. And I'm like, I'm a parent, like I got it. Like I know how to parent kids and I know how to live. And yeah, I'm sure we'll go deeper into my mother. I'm not scared to talk about her. She doesn't not listen to the podcast.
Yeah. I'm like, Mom,
I
here's
don't
not
think
the
actually I don't think my mom is gonna I think she just listened to the first episode of the podcast to like be supportive, but I actually don't think she listens anymore either.
man, you'd be surprised though. Because all the people who are hitting me up, I'm like, you're listening? I'm like, oh shit. You'd be surprised. But yeah, this one, mother. You know, this go around right now, I'm really close to my mom. It's like I'm almost like her caretaker these days. Like
Hmm.
I'm like setting her up with healings and I'm watching her growth because she's going through a really bad time. She lost her eyesight at 30. She had a rare disease and she got chickenpox of the eye and she couldn't see at all at 30 years old. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
And then over time, she's probably had like at least 25 surgeries with a UCSD Shiley Center. It's this top of the line eye center where they have been working on her over 20 surgeries, and she's been getting her eyesight a little back so she could see like figures. But my mom, you know, she's a badass. She's a nursing professor, and she's been doing that with her eyes messed up the whole time. No one really knows though. It's like because she doesn't look blind,
Mhm.
but she blind.
Mhm.
And recently her eyes are going just bad. She's 63 now, and they're just like going. They're decaying. And so I sat in her position after all the trauma that she's put me through with so many other things in her life, with my dad passing away, all these crazy things. And I was like, I need to get her some healing because if I lost my eyesight, I went from like perfect eyes to no eyes, I would have a really hard time, right? Like that's just really bad.
Mhm.
Because my mom has softened. She used to be like this very angry person. And then now she's like a grandma, like a happy grandma, retired. And so I got her to a healing session 2 weeks ago and she was just bawling. I told my friend who's a healer, I go, I haven't seen my mom bawl since 1999. And my friend was just dying laughing. And I was like, she's like, your compassion is high, huh? It's because you're stepping into motherhood. I'm like, yeah, even if I wasn't stepping into motherhood, I think I would just start to understand her more at this day and age. It's crazy what your heart can do. So right now we're in good standing. How are you guys with your moms?
I'm fine. I don't know how else to say. I'm fine. I mean, I think we have our ups and we have our downs. Like we definitely have ups or downs, and it's always like a control battle between like, you know, I think it's more on her side a control battle, but right now we're good. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Like I'm good right now. But I definitely have to watch the relationship. Our relationship dynamic is different too, because my mom didn't really raise me. Um, I was raised by primarily my grandfather. My mom was a single mom, and she had to go to school in the day and work at night, or vice versa, I forget. And so she couldn't take care of me. And so therefore it was like, well, you're going to go live with your grandfather so I can, you know, do what I need to do to provide. And I didn't really grow up with her. So I didn't actually live with my mom until I was 12 when she remarried. Um, but there was points that she lived with my grandfather in the property, but there again, I didn't stay with her. I had my own room I was in my grandfather's home. There were two different units. So I feel like our relationship's very interesting. It's very sisterly. But it's
Mm.
also very motherly. So I feel like she tries to make up for what she missed in a way, but it's like, I'm 41, like, you know, and then there's aspects of her that I'm like, I don't think you really know me sometimes because you didn't know me. Like you didn't know my personality or you didn't know these things about me. I'm not hurt. I'm not even mad about it. It's just one of those weird, interesting dynamics, especially like when my grandfather passed, you know, it was like I was there, assisting her, but more as like I'm assisting my father passing, not my grandfather. So
Yeah.
our dynamic is very, even in the
Your
things that,
sisters.
even
Yeah.
things that happen in their brother and sisterhood, it's always like, yeah, I'm just seen differently. So it's
Yeah.
a weird dynamic, but she's a great grandmother. She's
Yeah.
a great grandmother. Um, we just have to remember that I'm an adult and that I'm the parent. That's it.
Where did you get your nurturing from when you were little? Was it your grandpa? Did he play both roles?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Yeah.
I think I definitely had what would be called, the mother wound. As far as like different things with my mom, nurturing for me was not a natural instinct. I mean, you have to look at it as my mom was one primarily raised by my grandfather who did not have a wife. So she grew up very, in a masculine type of upbringing. And then she was masculine, and then she raised me very masculine. My grandfather did remarry my step grandmother, but my step grandma was very masculine. So
Yeah.
I think looking at it, nurturing was not something I don't think I was taught. I mean, I was nurtured, I was cared for and loved, and my grandmother very much would baby me and, provide for me when I was sick or things, but it was different. So I had to really, I don't know. I think I've always been a nurturer in some sense when it comes to children. I love children. I've always, even my mom will like little memories of always wanting to take care of kids or being around kids. So nurturing children was easy for me. I think it's been interesting as they've gotten older to learn to nurture and even nurture myself or nurture my partner. And it's been something that I've had to kind of learn on my own, um, which is really hard for people to understand. They don't get that. Like, people are like, well, why don't you just do this or why don't you do that? And it's just like, it's just not natural for me. So I have to pay attention to nurturing and how to nurture. I think I'm still learning that. But my kids, I love my kids. I adore my kids. But I still also there's always work to be done. I never had a problem with not nurturing my kids. It's just a
It's
lot
like yourself.
yeah, like
More.
even when I was a mom and I first had babies, I had to read books. I
Yeah.
learned how to be
Oh,
a
I think
mom
that's
from books.
normal. I
No,
think
it's
that's
not
cool.
normal.
I don't know
It
because
is
my
normal.
sister,
I don't
yeah,
know.
my sister's was a kindergarten teacher for 20 years and she was reading all the books, right? Like when she was pregnant. I think that's cool. Like you'll always have something to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. It definitely, when we go into shit like this, like the past, it really shapes like why, or it answers a lot of questions on why you act the way you do, kind of thing. Right.
yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like seen in my masculine a lot. A lot of people are like, are you a lesbian? I'm like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? Right. And I'm like, oh yeah, my mom was hard though. Like, so I can see how I have like that on accident.
Yeah. Yeah. My boyfriend made a comment the other day about like how my family is always like, nobody ever likes to be wrong. So like everybody wants to always like no one likes to be wrong in the family. Cause I made something about my son, like, oh, he doesn't like to be wrong. He's like, nobody in your family likes to be wrong. And I was like, yeah, that's true. Like we've just grown to be this, um, whole we're feisty. I don't know what the word is. I just had to write an essay on this for school, like objective learning, whether it's like, through the system of learning to be a certain way, like is it true that we learn by our observational learning, by what's around us, nurture versus nature type of thing.
Mhm.
Hell yeah, we do. Environment is everything.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear Oneika too. Like, woof. Look at my face.
Anika's face is like, I don't want, like, she's like, this is cute. Like, this is a cute topic. Just
I think I think I'm a lot more like my mom than I want to admit.
yeah.
And if Andy could hear me, my partner in the bedroom, if she heard me say that, she's probably clutching her stomach, rolling on the bed, laughing. I think I'm a lot more like my mom than I want to admit. And my she's a force of nature. She is a force of nature. And I think I am a force of nature. So when we were growing up, it was almost like two queens in the same house. And as I was a teenager, we had a terrible, a straight up horrible relationship up until I think my 20s. Um, Fighting all the time, screaming, sometimes physically. It was really bad. Um, and part of it was me. I think part of it was her. And there was, when what Isabel said around everybody wanting to be right, I related to that, but I think it was an issue of vulnerability. I wasn't raised with a lot of vulnerability. Um, and it's not that there wasn't love. It's not that my parents didn't love me. In a lot of ways, I had a really magical childhood. Like I didn't really want for shit growing up. But emotionally, I am a very warm and nurturing person, but I feel like I wasn't allowed to be that way. And I was told I was a lot, you know, too much. I heard that a lot growing up. You're so emotional. Stop being so this, stop being so that. And I think it really squashed a part of me. And so I had to, a lot of ways, I feel like I'm very similar to Isabel in so many ways that I had to learn how to nurture. And I actually never had a deep desire to have kids or to be a mother, but I do think in lots of ways I mother things I feel like I'm sort of like not like an earth mother, but I feel like I'm very connected to Mother Earth in that way. And so when I do things, I bring that part of me, but I had to learn how to do that. And I think as a result, I was very distant. I was very icy. Like a lot of people would say that they thought I was stuck up and it was, or aloof. And it wasn't because I was aloof. It was because I didn't know how to engage. I wouldn't be surprised if someone said that, if a doctor said that I wasn't on the spectrum somewhere, because I have a lot of social anxiety too, which no one would ever believe when I say that, but I have a lot of social anxiety. And I think part of it is nurture. I think part of it is just nature. I think I'm actually very anxious by nature. And so that I think was also why I was very emotional, because I was so uncomfortable. And then I was told that I was too big or too much. And so then I squashed it down. And I think I've been peeling those layers, and I think I still keep growing. My relationship with my mom now is mostly good. She can get on my fucking nerves, and I know I get on her.
Yeah.
But I think what I've learned to do is not wish for a different mom. I think I spent a lot of time wanting my mother to be somebody else rather than just accepting the mother that I had and appreciating her for all of the things that she did give me that I'm really wonderful with. Like, I think I have an incredible sense of style and taste, my love of literature and books. I think my creativity, being a writer, comes directly from her.
Wow.
The way that she sees beauty in the world, I know I got from her. I think a sense of being pride, I think I got from her too. I'll never forget when I was working at Barnes & Noble as a district manager, someone from the front desk called my office and said, "There's a woman here and she's a little scary. Like, I don't know who she is. She's asking for you. And like, is she royalty?" Like, it was really, oh, that's my mother. You can send her up. Like, it's just really like, they're like, "We thought she was like famous or something." Cause I don't know. It was just really weird. And so, like, that's my mom. Yeah.
Oh man, I wish I need to meet her. I need to meet
Bigger
her.
than life. She is. She's bigger than life.
I get that.
She is. She's bigger than life, and she's wonderful. And I've actually really seen her blossom in a lot of ways. My dad died, like becoming this woman on her own, which is really magnificent to see.
Yeah. Whew.
I like
Sounds like we come from very strong lineages.
Strong women.
I like that you said the fact that like you can't change her. Like I think that's the biggest thing is that when we realize that fact, like I think I spent a lot of time last year learning that fact of like, let me just embrace who you are rather than trying to change who you are. There's definitely things that had to be changed because boundaries were overstepped. very much so.
Mhm.
But after that, it's like, I know I'm a lot like my mom. Like I get that. Something's good, something's bad, but I think that goes with both ways, right? My father included. So it's just kind of like, yeah, but I like that you said, like, yeah, it comes to a point, I think, with our moms that you're like, I can't change who they are. Like, I have to look at the aspects of
Mhm.
what I've gained and, how I am. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my mom might wish she had a different kid too. You know? I may not be the one that she wished for when I
I hope she hears this.
she might be like, "Yeah, I could have gotten a different one than this one." I mean,
That's
out
so
of all of the people, I got this one because I was a handful. I was, I went through a period when I was really struggling with mental illness and my early 20s to my mid 20s, and it was I put my parents through a lot because I was really struggling. I mean, I was I was in a mental hospital for a little bit and in and out of therapy and
Yeah.
is diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She's manic. She's
Mhm.
depressive. She's has bipolar. She's bipolar 1. She's bipolar 2. Like all of these things and it turns out like I was anxious and I hadn't processed some sexual trauma that happened in my past, and I think that was sort of the root of it. And then when I decided like, oh, I might end up being like Girl Interrupted if I don't sort of take control of
Right.
my life, and that's not how I'm trying to live. So
Yeah.
but I know too, like I was a lot, I was a lot, and I got a lot of support from my mom, especially during that time. So I think that's when I started to say like, you need to stop putting this desire for somebody to be something else on her. And maybe
Mm.
I also need to shift the way that I'm talking to her. And that changed a lot too. And she mentioned that we did this civil rights tour with our like a whole bunch of our family and friends like a few
Whoa.
years ago. And I overheard her talking to somebody saying like, "Oh yeah, like Onika's amazing because like some of the things I used to say to her, like I can imagine I'd be so angry, but she's like so lovely." And I'm like, who is that woman
Yeah,
talking?
who are you?
Who's that person up there?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Wow.
so it's acceptance. I think that's a big part of it. Accepting ourselves and then accepting, and
Man.
and now with my dad gone, she's it. And so like I don't want to have, anything unsaid. You know what I mean? Like or it I'd rather even argue and stuff than not speak. My parents were really good about ignoring people. Like, the silent treatment was a big way that my parents dealt with things was to ice you out. And that really fucked my head up. Like I really, really can't stand when someone doesn't confront something directly and being ignored. It's a big trigger for me.
Oh man, same. That's what my mom would
Silent
do.
treatment is just the worst for me.
Oh, my mom would do that, especially when I was a teenager. And I went through very similar stuff as you, Onika, like diagnosed and go to see a therapist. You're too much. And I'm like, fuck all y'all. Like, fuck all y'all. Um, it's interesting sitting with a lot of my healer friends. We've all had massive trauma with our mothers. That's what I'm realizing. Just I'm looking back at all my business partners too, and we all had deceased fathers. It's crazy what you attract in
Mhm.
and how it shows up in your current. Um, it's beautiful though at our age now where we can we have our own lives, right? Well, kind of.
Mhm.
Isabel's still working on the boundaries. Um,
They're
you
getting
know, yeah, way better, right? But you just have 4 kids, and that's probably why she's up in your business a lot more. Um, but it's just that's a commonality that I'm really starting to understand.
There's It's interesting with my mom though, like our stories mimic each other. That's what's always been really hard with her boundaries is that we mimic the like talking about karma, like literally my story is her story.
Mhm.
And last year when we finally were like clear to speak and trying to come in, I was like, just because my story mimics yours so much doesn't mean it's your story. It's mine. Therefore, just because there's things in my story you would have done differently, given the opportunity or different things, that's for me. Like, that's my journey. Like, you
Yeah.
decided to take on my healing and what I was going through as yours because it mimicked yours so much, but I wasn't asking you to do that. Like,
Yeah.
no, I think it's really hard coming from my mom's standpoint where I've always felt like the black sheep of the family. Like, I'm the same with you, Oneika. Like, I was always too much and, trying to figure out that. And I think even now I'm still seen sometimes in that way as being too much. Um, but I believe firmly that we all write our own journeys. We all write how things are going to look. Um, and I definitely wasn't fitting her mold or ideal of like how she would have done things or understood things. Um, but I find that we are definitely better in the understanding of like, these are my household, these are my rules. You don't have to agree with them, but you have to respect them, and if you don't respect them, then you can't come in my house. Like, I literally had to lay that down. I was like, you can't come in. Um,
Mhm.
Last year, I think I told Mal, like literally my book came out. The day my book was released and it was having this whole launch, my mom decided to take it upon herself and have words with my boyfriend, like just randomly on her thoughts and opinions of our relationship. And I was like, oh no, like, no, 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 no. Like, and I was like, you literally pick the one day that like I should be celebrating to be like, let me, do, which is interesting.
Mhm.
She's also my biggest supporter. Um,
I do.
and she's my best friend. Like literally, she's, there's things people always said growing up. They're like, wow, you have such a great relationship with your mom. You guys talk about everything. You guys can be open and do. But at the same time, it was like, yeah, but I don't, it's a different relationship.
Mhm.
But yeah, she's definitely gotten better within the last couple of months. I think when we know I think she's learned in the same too, that she has boundaries as well. And it's okay to have them. I think she's learning that in representation of me because I find when we start spending time together, we both know like, okay, we need to spend time apart, where she'll be like, I've been over to your house a lot. I'm going to take a couple of days and not. And I'm like, I totally get that. Like, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're like, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
there's definitely, last year definitely was a big, big learning, but there was months that like, I think my birthday, I didn't spend with my mom. Like I didn't see my sister. It was just boundary after boundary after boundary had to be laid of like, no, no, you don't have to agree. And my lifestyle is not, people do not agree with my lifestyle whatsoever. They didn't agree with what I did for a living, which was a fight. They didn't agree with my marriage situation. Like there's so much in it,
Mhm.
but yeah, I don't know. This is a really weird subject for me because I think I'm just kind of like, I look at it now and having girls, being a mom. I know I'm like, being a mom now and having girls and having the opportunity to kind of reshape things and give it to them a little differently. I'm very open with my children, very open. Um,
Mhm.
Same way as my mom, because that was something that I admired with my mom in my relationship, that I could be so open with her. So I do allow that with my kids without judgment.
Mhm.
Um, and but at the same time, when I found out I was having a girl, I cried my eyes out. My boy was my first and my girl was my second. I cried and I cried and I cried because I was like, I don't know how to be a mom to a girl. I can be a mom to a
Mm.
boy, but I don't know how to be a mom to a girl. I didn't know how to do it. I was like, I don't know how to do hair. I didn't know how to do anything. I wasn't in my feminine necessarily. Like I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like I was so scared.
Mhm.
Um, but now it's, I had to learn how to do everything on my own. Now it's great. Now I think I
Mhm.
definitely,
Healed that. I'm all check.
Yeah. Ancestral,
There's
oh, I'm sorry, Mel, go ahead.
no, go ahead. That's where I was going, ancestral.
Yeah, I think there's an element for me also to look at also what my mother had to deal with her mother, because I think she
Mhm.
had sort of a complicated relationship with her own mother, and um and then just the things that they all had to deal with as well, like societally. I think a lot of the guardedness, was around also trying to keep us safe, and consciously and unconsciously dealing with racism and all of that kind of stuff shaped how she moved, because my grandfather was really big on not making them, her, when I say them, her and her sister, like look foolish in front of white people. That was like a
Ooh,
being
yeah.
presentable, right?
same. That was my
Like
grandfather, same.
like respectability politics was a very big part. Like act a certain way, be a certain way, and it can be confusing because it's like pride and why do I give a fuck about what they think, right? Like
Right.
those and being infused with those two things was very complicated, and I think it was probably complicated to swallow, and I think I was also raised with that, like carrying yourself a certain way, being proud to a certain extent, but being proud because you don't want anybody to think a certain thing. That's not really pride, right? Like that's a sense of protection against being afraid of what dominant culture thinks of you.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think my role in understanding my own mother wound from like a sort of big M macro perspective is to deal with that, to deal with that ancestral wound of racism and protection. And I don't have kids, but I think I've had to end that wound just for myself. And let that ripple out, and really trying to disconnect myself from dominant culture. So I'm just happy being a Black woman to be a Black woman and not in relationship to like whiteness or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just very different. And it was hard because my mother, her parents were very politically active. So we were always like, talking about what was happening in the world and civil rights movement and all that kind of stuff. And then it was like a fight and protest, which I appreciate, but I was always, I think, in love with love. Like that was my way of being in the world. And so having to say like my way of showing up in the world is about love.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Lot of healing.
I'm listening to you and I'm just having like these epiphanies that I'm like, I get this. Like I get entirely what you're saying, especially like it just brought so many, I'm like kind of just a little bit trying to take it in, but it's like, I look at my grandfather who was very much what you're saying. Like he was like, okay, we're proud of being Mexican. We're proud of our heritage and who we are, but let's simmer it down because we need to prove that we can be just as, powerful or that we can do things and successful. So he kind of watered our heritage down a little bit because he just did his best. I mean, he went through the whole segregation act that we had to do. Like that was he had to fight segregation and speaking Spanish and growing up. So he went through all of that he was like, I want to bring this in for my childhood. And then my mom came and, she brought in that too, as like, you got to go to school, you got to get your degree, you got to be successful. This is the way you show up, yes, we're proud of our heritage, but, focus on this way, focus this way. And so hearing it in her sense and hearing it his sense, and then here I am being this weird link of matriarchy that they literally were like on his deathbed, like, people have been like, you're taking over, like, this is it, right? I'm just like, F your walls and barriers. I'm coming in like, we're bringing it all back. I'm like, I love my heritage. I mean, Mal knows I love my heritage and it's so deep, especially in San Diego. Like, I'm like, I'm embracing it 120%. And if you don't like it, then goodbye. But I'm like, you guys had all your issues that I had to work through, mother wound, father wound, heritage wound, like cultural, aspects. And it's just so interesting because I'm just like, I'm actually kind of looking at my mom with a little bit more of a different lens right now. I think I'm looking with a bigger and a different lens of, okay, I get it. And I think that's too why there's a part of her that connects so much to my story, because I know we're similar in the sense that if she could do it differently, she'd probably do it my way. Like she would probably be like, oh, I'll do it your way. She's super supportive, like I said, of my job. She's very curious, but then will be very much in her Christian faith, because that's what she was taught. At the same time, she loves that my kids are so involved in their culture. And she just thinks, and my sister, I'm like, honey, you're Mexican. And she drives me crazy.
Well, what does she think she is? So what does she act like?
She's I excuse my terminology, everyone.
I am dead.
You know, excuse my terminology, but my sister's very whitewashed. Like,
Yeah.
she's which is really interesting.
Assimilated.
Yeah, it's very different. And so I think it's more out of a frustration where she's like, wait, because she was living with my mother and I was living with my grandfather. So I was very much raised in my culture. And she's like, has to remember that. She's like, oh, we were raised in completely different households. And I was like, yeah, like my grandfather definitely had to keep up in certain stereotypes, but like he was very much like I was immersed, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she's we always are like, we just, you know, she was like, okay, so you're having a quinceañera, like, what? Like,
Your sister, I'm dying right now because I follow her on Instagram because you told me she's like a blogger with fashion. I'm like, and when I looked at her, y'all look alike, but I was just like, oh, this girl is hella white, like for real. Like when I looked at her, it's funny.
For real.
People will be like, what does that mean? I'm like, just whitewashed, like looks white, acts white, like just super not representative of the culture. You could just,
It's
I'd be
hard,
like, oh,
you know,
are you
it's
a North
hard
Mexican?
too. Yeah, it's hard because it's like, I was told my whole life, like, you think you're white, right? Like, you sound white, you act white.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, and
Oof,
the number of times I was called Oreo in my life.
Doesn't
And it's so crazy because I was not and this is where I think it's really complicated. I'm writing about this in my show too. So it's like my parents instilled me with all of this pride about being Black and all of that kind of stuff, and moved to a predominantly white neighborhood. So like, what the fuck? Like, what do I do with that? Like, you want me to be this, but why do we live here?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, man.
you know, and because it's like opportunity and all of this stuff. And it's like, yes, when I used to say like, and oh my, because Valley Girl talk was big, like when I was growing up. So I used to say like grody and all, like grody and grody to the max and all that kind of stuff. And my father said to me, don't bring that street talk into the house. I'm like, that's street?
Yeah.
What am I on the mean streets of like East Windsor, New Jersey? What are you talking about?
You're like, I got that from the Hamptons.
I was like, I got that from Valley Girl. Like, oh my God.
Totally.
It's really, you know, it's funny, like what you end up having to combat and hold on, like hold wounds that your mother held, that got passed down to her. And you know, I got this reading several months ago. I think I told you about an ancestor reading, and one of the things that this person said to me was that you are worried about ancestral trauma, like a lot, like it's something that you think about all the time, and you need to understand that when you do your work, you aren't just healing to be a good ancestor. You are actually helping people in your line who have already transitioned, who are stuck and who are angry, and you're healing them. And I just like, I just started like weeping. I couldn't stop. And they were like, that's what you're doing. Like, you need to be okay. Like, you are doing something. It is working. And you need to understand that they're grateful that you're doing this. So don't stop. But you may not know, but that is happening all the way back.
Yeah.
And that was a really powerful moment for me. Yeah.
I had a client the other day, and I said this to other clients, especially clients that have an overgiving, like meaning that they, you know, they're giving too much of themselves that they're not focused on. It's like, okay, let's turn it around and learn to, you know, give to yourself and receive. And I said, here's the thing. And I remember bringing this message in. It was like, if you feel the need to overly give to so many people and to give this way, look at it from the viewpoint of exactly what you're saying, that in giving to yourself and allowing yourself to receive, you are healing and you are all these lines, right? It's like, hey, some people are like, deal with, that's a whole different issue, but selfishness and all these other random thoughts of if I do this, and here's my mindset around healing myself or looking at myself or focusing on myself. But it's like, if you do that, it's not selfish. Because you're healing so many back lines and even future lines if you're a parent or however it is that you're bringing it into the world, parent or not. But it's like, this is the most unselfish thing. And so I love, like, it's so true. Like, there's so much in there that it's like, I don't know. Yeah.
This is a lot. I'm like taking it all in. Like,
and I think one thing that my mother gave me that she might not even admit was my gift of intuition. Like, I think I get a lot of that from her side of the family. I get other things from my paternal side, but learning how to trust the things that I need. I feel very connected with my maternal side with that and her side of the family.
Yeah.
And being able to say no and doing things that are right for me. Like this weekend, I was invited to go on this retreat. And I'm not going. I decided not to go because of this like Ralph Ural thing. Like, I'm just really tired and I don't know these people that well. And they're mostly, I think, white or white passing. And I don't want to be in an environment where I feel like I have to be guarded, like just in case there's a microaggression,
or you become like the token Black girl and they ask you all the questions.
And I'm not saying that would happen, but whenever I go, you are kind of aware of when you're the only one of you in an environment. Like, you look around for like another person of color. You're like, oh, there's a Black person. Oh, there's a person of color. Let me check out where are my people in this space? And I feel like I did get that from her. My ability to say, like, no, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm firm in that. And that, I feel like, is a really a great thing for women to have, to be able to say, I'm going to nurture myself because that is really important. I'm grateful for that. And at first I was a little uncomfortable because I was like, is that going to, and I was going to make up a reason why I didn't want to go, but I was like, just be honest. I don't want to go because this is going on and I need to take care of myself. And, I'm going to facilitate a retreat next week that might be really heavy. So, I'm grateful for being
thinking ahead, right?
To be able to
rest up.
To lean into that part of her, I think is really important. I definitely got that from her.
Mel, how is it for you right now, given you're kind of in a scenario of, motherhood and learning how to like seeing the reflections of your past and even the reflection of their past?
Oh, girl. It's replica, like you said, how you've inherited, like, your story is very similar to your mom's. It's cool. I have two daughters. They're 10 and 11, or I'm sorry, they are 10 and 11 right now, but when I got them, they were 9 and 10. And I couldn't help but notice that was the same age when my dad died. And that's when my mom was just uproaring with her anger. And it makes sense. My dad passed away by choice. He committed suicide and they were divorced, but she was not by choice. She didn't want to leave him, but he was mentally ill and was on drugs. And so when I was 10 years old and he passed away, she was already remarried to my stepdad, who was white. And it was like no emotions were allowed in the house, right? My mom couldn't grieve. And it wasn't from my white stepdad. It was my grandpa, who's Mufasa in our family.
Yes.
So, of course, that her anger trickled down to me, to my sister, to my brother. As I got older, it's crazy when you really know my story, because when my husband passed away, it was very similar. He didn't commit suicide, but it was very on the same lines of mental illness, drugs. But he was his mask was he was a firefighter, so a lot of people thought he was like, this hero, and he was, but he also had some background. So when he passed, the first thing my mom said was, "Oh, you're gonna have a hard time." That was the first thing she said, and I'm like on the floor. And the first thing I said to my mom was, "This is not fucking about you," at the top of my lungs. But in my head, I'm like, it kind of is though. And it was like karma that came through me.
Yeah.
Anyway, years later, 15 years later, I heal. that process.
Mhm.
And then of course these girls come into my life, and looking at them, I'm so hyper aware of like, don't bring your story onto them, even if they're adopted, whatever, because they have a very similar childhood as me, motherless, you know, um, dad and mom, alcohol, drugs, prostitution, all these crazy things, and I'm just more of an ear for them. Like, hey, like if you need me, I'm right here. I've walked your walk. That's it.
Mhm.
And it's crazy when you're 10 and 11, you think that's little, but when you've seen so much, they're like 25. They're like
Mhm.
25 years old. So these girls are like super old. I was gonna say something. My grandma, right before she passed last year, it was right before I adopted the girls or went through the legalities of it. She said to me in my dreams, because my grandma was dying of dementia, so she couldn't speak anymore in real time. But in
Mhm.
my dreams, the day before she died, she came to me. She goes, "Gather everyone, 5 o'clock tomorrow. I'm passing." And she literally passed at 5 p.m. the next day. But she said to me, what you're going to be doing with these girls is going to help change your ancestral line for the better. And I want you to understand you need to be compassionate with your mom because you and I can see, and that's why we can see, because she can't. And literally, my mom's blind. And she goes, but we're clairvoyant because she gave up her sight for you. There's so many things my grandma said to me in that vision dream. And I was like,
Chills. Yeah.
yeah. And I was just like,
Chills.
okay, bruh, I need to be nice to my mom. The
Mhm.
moment my grandma died, I was like, I need to flip the script and I need to bring all this healing to my mom. And now it's happening. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like this caretaker role of like teaching her how to love herself first. She never knew how. It's crazy. And through that, I'm healing. Through that, these girls that I've taken on as my adopted daughters, they're healing. It's ancestral trauma is real.
Yeah. I'm
It
saying
is.
the
Yeah,
mother
go ahead.
wound, the mother wound, and like even what our topic, we thought we were going to maybe talk about karma, right? And
Mhm.
the fact that we have to, I don't care who you are, but you know, your ancestral line follows you and you have to heal. Somebody has to do the work. Somebody has to clear it out. And what's interesting is,
Mhm.
you know, me too, having two adopted children, is now watching them not clear the mother wound connected to me, but the mother wound connected to
Yeah.
them by birth.
Mhm.
And you know, one's 16 boy, one's 18 girl. And you know, watching them go through it, which is really interesting because my mother actually, my cousin, who that's where my children come from, she lived with us. So my mom took her in, and then now I took, you know, kind of goes down the line. But I'm like, we ending that shit, right? We're ending that shit.
Amen.
Like we're doing the
Amen.
work and we're ending it.
That
And
part.
but you know, I almost can cry because at times I think I've watched my daughter. I mean, when she came, she was 4 going on 5, and if you know anything, like, about the human brain and our development, we're pretty much who we are by a set time, and you know, watching her have to kind of navigate and heal that, both mental aspects that her mom carried into, you know, her life, and listening to her, and I'm just like, "Oh, love, like, you know, what you're working on," but,
Damn.
oh god, man, I can, that's a whole book in itself too, like the stories of fits and rages and trauma and, you know, manic and bipolar, same thing, and diagnosis after diagnosis of, you know, high on the spectrum and this and that and learning disabilities, and then, you know, all the other issues of abandonment, and I'm just like, ah, but her mom carried the same weight. Her mom carried the same weight, her birth mother, and
Mhm.
you know? So
Mhm.
like you said,
Yeah.
ancestral wounds, mother wounds, they run deep. They run deep. Whether nature
Hell
was
yeah.
nurture or whether somebody else is
Yeah.
upbringing you, it's a deep, deep wound.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's why whenever I read someone, it's always like, I better have Isabel or, you know, my friend Nikki, people like you in my back pocket. Because every time I'm reading someone's future, I'm like, this is great. And what I mean by heal is usually the mother or dad wound. And it's like, you got to go back to move forward, right? For
Yeah.
the most part. And when Oneika said, like, when you got that healing and the healer said or channeled, damn, this goes back to the ancestors that are already crossed over. It's like, that shit's deep. It's not just like your immediate mother, right? It's like all the way back.
It's
And
all,
they're
yeah,
like
it's
cheering you
all the way
on.
back.
Yeah, that's oof. So that's karma for your ass. Meaning like whatever comes around goes around. Whoever didn't finish something, you're next in line. Try to do your best to cap that. And I've noticed in our generation, or people surrounding me anyway, who are healers, we're killing it off in a good way. We're healing it so it doesn't hit the next generation. Sure, Luca and is it Pia? Pia,
Yeah.
right? Oh God, they're so cute. By the way, the Care Bears. Her nieces and nephews who are like her own. They're gonna have a whole nother life.
They're
Like
so
they
cute.
are so cute. Their eyes. I'm
I
like,
love those children with every ounce of
oh,
my
oh
body.
yeah, oh yeah. I see
I
that.
can't even tell you. I just,
They're the best, aren't they? That next generation, and we get to hold them up and like, you can do anything, kid, anything. We got you, like that.
and I
Those they're
haven't,
legends.
yeah, I haven't seen them in person lately. So I've sent videos to them, and my sister said that Luca looked at a video that I sent him last week because apparently he did this video for School Spirit. I thought it was so cute. So I was like, Luca, you're to have so much School Spirit. I love it. And I see Pia, and apparently he like took the phone and so he could like privately like look at the video with Pia so they could just like take it in by
I
themselves. I was
can't.
like, I cannot. I love them so much.
They are the best. I don't even.
Uh,
I've never met them, but I've met them through
they
you, and
make
they're
my
like
heart just explode. Like
same.
just explode.
Yeah, that's how I feel about my sister's kids too. It's just like I'm obsessed, and my
I'm
girls are
obsessed.
obsessed with them. It's like they always want to spend the night at my sister's house. I'm like, your bedroom is at my house. They're like, can we spend the night with them? I'm like, all right, it's all you, boo. Go ahead. Those kids, man, magic.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mentioned I never had a burning desire to have kids. There was one person, Eric. He was somebody I considered having kids with.
Yep.
And when he went to Iraq, we had talked on the phone. He said, when I come back, I'll donate sperm or something, just in case anything happens, like you can have it. And and then he didn't come back, but
yeah. That's
so
a whole nother episode.
Yeah, like when he died and the sperm thing never happened, there was something in my soul that just was like, yeah, that was going to be it, and it didn't happen, and I was okay with not having kids after that point. Like
I feel the same.
There was like a soul contract that I feel like was definitely me and him, and when it didn't happen, I never had any regrets or anything about it, and I found myself sort of mothering and the way that in the work that I started to do.
Yeah.
And
you definitely are a mother.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I never had the desire to have kids. I think at 8 years old, I told my mom I didn't want kids, and she thought I was so fucked up. And to this day, I mean, I have kids, but I never had the sense of wanting to birth children. It's so bizarre.
And I don't think it is. I think that's the other thing too about that ends up happening to a lot of women. This idea that gets pushed onto them that they have to want to have kids, or there's something wrong with them if they aren't quote unquote maternal, and all of these things. And and what is maternal anyway? Like my dad was maternal in a lot of ways for me. And nurtured me in ways that my mom didn't. And my mom was like really strong in a way that might have been seen like paternal for me. So I think it's also allowing ourselves to redefine what is maternal and what's paternal in the first place. And allow women to be exactly how they are, and just say, yes, this is a woman who is like this, and it doesn't make her any less or more of a woman because she does things in a way that's not the way that society says.
Amen. Yeah, that's our generation pushing that out, because you tell that to my grandpa, who's super masculine. He would say something like, "You're selfish," to me directly, like, "You're a selfish person." I was like, "Damn, straight up." That's that old generation. I'm like, we now know where it started. And you're the root.
Right.
It's your fault. I'm just kidding, but not really. Damn. Do you guys have any exercises that you do to like nurture your inner child, the little girl inside of you?
I think my biggest one for me is just I've let her play. Like, I think that was the biggest
Oh,
thing is I don't think I
that's
didn't
good.
really, I mean, I played as a kid, but I also didn't. I held back with my own, upbringing
Mhm.
and creativity. Sorry, my kids are coming downstairs. And I think it's the biggest one is just letting her play. Whatever
Mhm.
that looks like, right? I mean, I think there was a time with even having my own kids that gave me space to kind of do that with them. So like when they were younger, we did a lot of arts and crafts, and I went through my own arts and crafts period, and just exploring,
Yeah,
having fun.
that's beautiful.
I love that you're saging right now, Nika, because
I think I tell
had to
my
sage
inner
too.
child one,
I'm gonna get
Well,
my.
like this
I
is
think
all heavy and
I
thick.
have to
We're
tell
like,
her that I know, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
whoo, it's I'm not trying to have this kind of day. I'm trying to lighten this day up right now. Um, I think I tell her when like the trigger comes up, right? That is the little girl feels triggered. I tell her that she's okay.
Mhm.
Like I got it. Because I've been doing the work. Like you don't need to do anything, so you don't need to be stressed out. So go ahead and go do
You
whatever you gotta
advise
do.
her all day long.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah. I think that's what happened this morning when I was like, I need to find out what's going on with my mom. Like, because that little girl rose up, like, I'm being ignored. And that
Yeah.
was me. That was me. You know what I mean? Like, that was my thing. That wasn't her. That was me. And I was like, you know what? That's okay. You can go do your thing because I know how to deal with that. So I will reach out to make sure, you know what I mean? And clear that up. And I think that's what a good spiritual practice will do for
Yep.
you. It gives you the tools because it's not like I think a lot of people when they hear that I'm spiritual and I wonder if it's the same for you. They think that you have it all figured out and nothing ever happens in your life and you're just like chilling and manifesting all this shit and isn't, and that life isn't real and doesn't happen, and that's not true. It's just that we have practices to deal with when the
Yep.
shit comes up and stuff happens, and we have tools that we use to sort of deal with it so we can come back to this place of alignment.
1000%. It's like we're that strong in spirituality because we had to learn through our problems
And
or
to
our
do the
issues.
work, right? And that it's consistent. It's not like a one
Yeah.
and done thing.
Yeah. I take it as a compliment though when people go, God, you just have your shit together. I'm like, thanks. I make it look easier, huh? Because it's not. Like,
not.
it's like, woof.
I think I want
Um,
to touch on the fact that like we're talking today a lot about moms and that mother wound and things that we have to work on, and that like I'm just saying this for anyone, whether identifying male or identifying female, like this is a wound that affects both. Like this is not just I know we're
yeah.
coming from
Yeah,
a
or
woman's standpoint.
non-binary folks too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
And that's what I want to say. Like anybody can experience, a mother wound in some shape, way, or form. And so I
Yes.
just kind of wanted to make sure we put that out there that this isn't just, in affects one side or anything like that. So people know
Definitely.
because I know that like I get a lot of people, I get a lot of people and when they do shadow work that are dealing with, this exact topic. And I
Mhm.
think if you're like, am I dealing with this? Some of those things are like we talked about emotional awareness, not having that emotional awareness, not understanding it. Like you said, Mel, that nurturing. Where is your nurture level at? Are you able to do that for yourself or for others? Low self-esteem. Um,
Yeah.
the ability, like Oneika kind of mentioned it in her story, the ability to, self-soothe yourself. So just looking at, if you're like, am I, dealing with this, or is this an aspect that I'm kind of, looking at the effects of the mother wound? So just wanted to mention that for anybody that's listening and you're like,
Mhm.
I think I have this, or I think I don't. Yeah.
It's so funny how energy really is real because we've never frozen on our podcast, but this one we've been freezing on and off a lot.
I know.
We still got some healing to do.
Yeah.
We got some interference here.
Well, I think,
but I think, I think us even talking about it is helping to, we clear it.
I think it's really cool though, listening to you guys talk and seeing so much reflections of myself in it and going like, oh, I totally get that. I get that. And, I think I was a little bit like, you're like, how are you, your mom? And I'm like, I'm fine. And I'm like, am I though? Like, are we good? I think we are good actually. But I get where I'm like, maybe there's some things that I've learned I still need to release or, let go of, even the aspect of like, when I'm talking about like not being raised by her, like I'm not mad at her, but it's a very weird feeling. Like it's a weird feeling. That's the best way I can explain it when you're like, you didn't really raise me. Like, I know she gets mad about it, but I'm like, but you didn't. And it's a weird feeling. Like that's it. And I think I still got to somehow do some work around that. Like I can feel it. I just don't know how. So
yeah.
Always softening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone asked me the other day, they're like, I really like your podcast. Like, what does it do for you? And I go, it's straight up a shadow session every Tuesday morning. Every time we record, it's like shadow in the best way. It's freaking healing. Even if it's like, I'm not speaking the podcast, because I'm just taking it all in. Like whatever you guys are saying, I'm like, that is my mirror. So hopefully whoever's listening, thank you for listening. And I hope that you see it in that way too. This is truly healing. This is what shadow work looks like, just talking it out and recognition of your past and how it affects your present. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the accountability, like we get wounds, right? And I think this is important for folks who are embarking on maybe the beginning of their spiritual journey. We have wounds that have happened to us. And while they may not be our fault, they're our responsibility.
Yes.
To heal from. And it's like, you can't, like, when I went to therapy, I talked a lot about my parents and their bullshit and what happened to me. And I had to take responsibility, like in talking about like my mental illness when I was really sort of going through it. It was like, maybe some of it was trauma or nurture and all that stuff, but that doesn't mean that I was allowed just to not figure out what was going on with me and take care of it and find steps to move forward and heal. And I think that was, now that I'm thinking about it, that was probably the very beginning of that. Like, I am taking control of my spirituality and my spirit, because I don't want to be like this.
Yes.
I'm not going to be a burden. And I don't want that I don't want to put that on my family or whatever. And I am going to take care of myself. And that's when I could first say, like, my parents are my parents, and I need to, that they are who they are. I can't change that or fix it. And maybe I don't even want to, but the shit that I've done, I have to own. And I think that's another part of spirituality that is really important. You have to be responsible for your shit.
100%.
Like,
that's it.
I think that's the biggest thing too. It's like, go ahead, Mel. Sorry, we're cutting it out. So
no, I'm just agreeing. I'm just like that. I have nothing to say.
I think the thing is, like, you clicked on something that I always try to, like, when I do shadow work with clients, there was an orb just like flew by. What is that? Can you see it? I just did it again. Anyways, in Oneika, you had like this little orb flying here. You're like, you guys are like,
light it up.
But that's one of those things, like when I do a lot of helping people heal through the mother wound, and like with it, and you said it, it's that we have to parent ourselves. Mal, you're like, how did you guys, sit or work on your inner child or things like that? And it's like, we have to take responsibility for that little person, whether, no matter their age, you have to take responsibility of that person within you that has either, went into hiding, that is hurting, or that is pain. And rather than, holding that energy out towards those parents that are like, you didn't hold space for me in a way that you should have, it's now your responsibility as the adult to hold that space for yourself and to provide that sense of safety, to provide that sense of love and awareness of, I see you, I'm with you, I got you. And that's what the biggest part. I think people are like, well, what's shadow work? It's like, you guys got to show up for that sense of you inside and not consistently portray it outside, and that anger and that frustration that you didn't have me, you didn't protect me, you didn't give me what I needed. Because there reaches a point that it's now our responsibility to give that. I think it's okay to grieve over what was missed. It's okay to, have those emotions and that space that rises up out of frustration or whatever it may be. But at the same time, it is each and every one of our own responsibilities to nurture ourselves and to empower ourselves with the sense of, boundaries and whatever values that we want to, take on. I don't know. So you said it pretty much, and you guys just like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I think people are like, well, how do I, shape that? How do I nurture myself, or how do I heal something that I have? Like you said, Mal, like, how do we do that in a sense when we didn't have that upbringing, or how do we do that? I always tell people, well, then how would you wanted them to show up for you? How would you wanted them to be for you, and provide that for yourself, whatever way?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do an exercise every morning with the girls. They still giggle, but we all brush our teeth together, and I put our baby pictures on the mirror. They're like pasted on, and I'm like, talk to your little girl right now. And they think I'm insane. They're giggling. But so I'll say to my little girl picture, I'm like, you're so beautiful. You're so safe. And I make them do the same thing. And then one day they said, what does safe mean? And I was like, bald.
Wow.
Well, brushing my teeth. I was like, and they're like, are you okay? And I was like, like, I didn't even know what to do in that 15 minutes. So I had to go back to my healers and be like, help. But yeah, these exercises and taking accountability is all necessary. All necessary. And honestly, if you don't look at them within yourself, spirit will they'll cue a kid or somebody to trigger you to heal. So it's like, you might as well just get on top of it, is what we're trying to tell y'all. Just walk through the tunnel. Like, you are the light, right? And the tunnel was created by you, so just walk through. Yeah, easier said than done, of course. So, but damn, this was
all we do is end up delaying, right? We just delay the suffering when we try to, avoid it or skirt around it. It comes back, and that's the whole, we had initially said that we were going to talk about karma, but that's one kind of karma, and samskaras. In yoga we talk about samskaras, this idea that a lesson has to be learned, and if you don't learn it, right, the groove. Thinking of like a wooden wheel in dirt, the groove just gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So you need to do your work to get the wheel out of the groove so it can sort of keep going. And that's the work, right? That's the path, I think, of spirituality, to sort of heal that, and everybody here might not believe in reincarnation. I do. I think we do come back.
I do.
And, we'll keep coming back until we heal that, over and over and over again. So like, even sometimes if you feel like a story feels old, Pema Chodron talks about, like, sometimes you feel like this has been happening forever. When that comes up, that it just feels like it has always been here, even before you. That can be a sign that it may not even just be yours. It could be your parents. It could be going way back into your line. So those old feelings of that old story, like, oh, I feel like this is so stuck. That can be work on and nurture.
Hell yeah. The pings.
Wow, another epiphany. Another epiphany. I'm sitting there going, because I'm talking so much about my mother and how she wasn't raised with a mom, and then I'm looking at my father, whose mother was a single mom, and he wasn't raised with a dad, and what that did to his relationship. And I'm just like, oh, I don't know, just had like a little, oh, okay, this is a lot deeper, even in that other side of of my family that I don't even look at often.
Yeah. Lasting effects. I mean, it goes all the way into, how you create relationships romantically too. And this is what I explain to myself. And so a lot of clients are like, how come I can't find my man? How come I can't find my wife? I'm like, let's go all the way back again. Right? Patterns.
Mhm.
Like, it's so necessary to heal these wounds over and over and over is what we're trying to say. And please just start somewhere.
I think
Start
that
somewhere.
I went the other day, was it yesterday? I did a post on, well, they're going to not see yesterday. So it would have been a week ago from today or whatever, when you guys are hearing this, it'd been a week ago from today. And I put in there, I was just thinking about journal prompts because you're like, well, start somewhere, right? And people always are like, how do you do shadow work or how do you release or heal? And I think it's, like you say, the excavating of just keep asking yourself, why do you feel a certain way? And no longer hiding, but acknowledging that layer and then letting it go. And then providing, like I said, yourself that safety of it. But, asking yourself those questions. Like, I think one of the questions I was like, if it's a mother or even a father or anybody else, are you holding grudges?
Mm.
What is the struggle with letting go and how is it holding on, providing you, safety? Is it providing you safety? What does that look like? And
Mhm.
even I have, my clients do a lot of letter writing. You don't have to give the person a letter, but you need to release what that looks like or it is.
Yeah.
And I don't so much do a lot of letter writing, but I do a lot of talking out loud.
Mhm.
I have
Me
full
too.
I have full conversations.
All
And
the
I
above.
will have those conversations in a back and forth conversation, driving in my vehicles until I'm hot and heavy. And I'm like, wait a second, there's nobody here. Calm down. For real though. Like I'm getting bothered,
I
I'm
know.
getting mad, I'm like,
Yep.
and then I'm like, okay, wait, this is not actually happening. But I need to
Yep.
release. Like I'm like, I have to have
Yeah.
these conversations. You gotta let it out.
Yep.
I like crazy,
Mhm.
but
The first
anyway.
thing I sage at night, because I sage my house before I go to bed, is the cars.
Really?
Oh, do you really?
Hell yeah.
Do you save before you go to bed? I don't do it every night. I don't.
It's just a ritual for me because I work in my house and it's
She
like calling
smokes
in all
that out.
spirits.
Yeah, I mean that makes total
Yeah.
sense. But yeah,
But the cars I hit first because I'm like, this is where I release. And then I open the garage, right? Let it all out.
That's
Isabel's
interesting.
old teacher. Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I want to hear what you said. Go ahead.
Your old teacher back like 10 years ago, she came to my house. We were exchanging healing. And she's such a medium like you. And she goes, yo, did you just sage your house? Because you have 100 ghosts in your garage. And I go, oh, yeah, I've missed the garage. So even though, we don't speak to your old mentor teacher anymore, but yeah, I think of her every time I stage my garage and my cars because I'm like, she's the one who pointed that shit out to me. I'm like, ooh.
It's interesting because I find the
It's
car is a container. Like
huh?
I look at it as like an energy
It is a container. You
but
got to
I don't
clear
mean it
it.
in the sense that it holds energy. It's a sense of
Oh,
like clarity. Like I don't see the same energetic holds in a vehicle. And I think that's why oftentimes people get a lot of like epiphanies or conversations or whatever. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because
the
the car is
portal.
moving and the energy is flowing. But either way, like I don't know. I never thought I do have crystals in my car. Like I do have
Mhm.
selenite sticks in every car.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have, never thought about saging it or
Yeah. Put crystals in your car. Sage it. Yeah, it's a portal. Like my hallway upstairs
Yeah.
is a big portal. Has so many crystals hidden. And then for me, the car is a portal of ideas and people visit when I'm driving, right? They'll just pop in. And I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, I gotta sage later.
Yes, that I
Yeah.
do have that one happen.
Remember, I was telling you, Mel, when I was driving. One thing that's been happening that I feel something come over me,
Oh
and I
yeah.
feel like I want to fall asleep, but I'm not tired, and I have to like open my eyes really wide and say stop. For
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
what is
they
that?
definitely are trying to take over. Spirit's just trying to come through you, and
Yeah.
that's one of your most relaxed states. And when you described it, look back at the video. You did light language again. She keeps doing it.
Yeah, I
You
just was
are
realizing like you're
such
channeling.
you are such a channel. It's so beautiful because you're so artsy when you do it.
There's
Yeah, they want
yeah.
to come through you. It's so cool.
Well, we can talk about it after because I feel like I'm getting off the topic, but I did want to actually ask you both a question.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about it after.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I want to know. Listen.
I know. You know what we should do? We should talk about it after. I'm going to keep it rolling, and then they can go on YouTube and catch the after.
Yes. Okay, great. So thanks everyone for listening.
Yes, thanks everybody for listening.
Don't kill your shit.
You guys can watch the rest on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
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 Okay, so this used to happen all the time at Rikers with certain people. So there were certain people whose energy was just like, there was stuff on them. It wasn't even them, but stuff was holding on to them, and they would be talking to me. This also happened a lot this actually happens too when people are lying to me. Like actively lying to me. I start to get tired, like I'm going to pass out. Like I feel like this thing comes and my body starts to get heavy, and then it's just like I'm like if I let myself, I would just pass out. And I stop myself so I don't pass out. And it happened at Rikers so much. I had to be very careful because I was like, it would look very bad. If I ever passed out with somebody in my office, it would look really bad and they would get in trouble because they would think
right.
something to me. But that happens. You can let her go. Yeah. Yeah. So that it hasn't happened. I've been home a lot by myself, so it hasn't happened so much, but it happens in the presence of certain people. I feel like this I don't know what that is.
Isabel, go. We have so many answers for you.
Well, I definitely know, like when you were like first describing it, I was like, oh, you're a channel. Like they want you to channel. So they're definitely connecting for you. Here's what I think is pretty interesting and cool. And I'm gonna be really honest. There's different types of channels. There's like, me and Mal, where we're very here in the present channeling. Doesn't mean we always remember the conversations, because I'll be like, wait, I don't remember it, but I'm here. But there's also more of a trance channel. And a trance channel is what you're describing, where the energy actually wants to filtrate all in, where it feels like you're kind of like, I'm tapped out and something else is moving through me, right? And that to me, and I'm listening, there's not very many trance channelers. Like Esther Hicks is a trance
terrifying.
It's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
It is. And because you're literally something else is coming through you, but I'm sure a lot like Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks,
and
Seth back in the day.
And Seth,
so like those are trance channels, and they're very rare. No matter who tries to be one, they're very rare. And that's what I'm feeling for you, is actually the occurrence of like a trance channeling wanting to come that way.
Yep. It's dope. What you can do to create safety with this gift, to talk to your team and say, it cannot happen during these times. So just like boundaries. Isabel and I'm sure you have a cutoff time. My shut off time for the day is like 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So Spirit knows not to bring ghosts into my house after that time. And just anyone who's trying to communicate, unless it's in my dreams at that point, until I wake up the next day, because it's just inappropriate. Like, I'm like, the girls are here. We're trying to get to bed. Do not bother me. And Spirit really works. When you tell them your hours of operation, they will abide. So when that happens, your team, your angels, your guides, they will block whatever channel's coming through until you're available. So you got to tell them, no cars, no Rikers when you used to work there. You cannot come through at these times, because God, you're so special. You work with such a higher council, so they try to take you out of your body to speak to them, and then they come through you, your higher council. It's like a long panel table of Spirit who wants to take over your body in the most beautiful way. But sometimes, when you're driving, that can't happen. You're gonna crash. So no. So tell them.
And give them rules on how and what's comfortable to you. Like if you're like, well, I still want to get the message, but I don't want to be taken out. Tell them what's comfortable to you. Like you can deliver it this way, but you cannot deliver it this way, right? Like I have very strict boundaries with my guides. And I think that's one of those things that people don't understand, that just because you have abilities doesn't mean you can't create boundaries with your spirit team. They're just as much need to be set those boundaries. Like for me, I'm like, I don't like astral traveling. Don't give me messages while I sleep. I want to sleep. You want to give me a message? You're going to give it to me later. Like this is the space to receive my messages. And I've told my guides, and especially when even doing mediumship readings, when I feel somebody like, here, let me step in and show you. No, you better stand the F back. No. You respect my boundaries. No, I will receive your message out here. You cannot come in here. So just create that. Oh, look at that. Bye.
And that's why you have your baby right there. That's another protector. Because I'm sure at night is it she? She, I'm sure she barks if she sees some unwanted spirit. God, you're a badass, Oneika, because they're just showing me what you can do. And I'm like,
yeah.
There's a girl I used to work with. Her name's Divine. That was her real name, which is crazy. She was a trans channel too. And to watch the voices come out of her mouth when she would go up was so fucking cool. She would just channel her team.
That's what was happening when I was in the tank.
I was just going to say that because you were talking about how you were speaking in a different accent.
Accents and I didn't know what I was doing. And I knew, like it was like,
yeah,
it was two people. It was like, oh,
whoa, there it is.
I love this podcast. It's like,
it was
so cool.
Like at Rikers, it used to terrify me because it happened so often. And so I would get scared to sometimes with certain people even do a meditation, because I would go to this place as soon as my eyes closed, and I would say like, stop it, stay awake, stay awake. And I would have to like pinch my legs subtly, or like I would sit like with my hands crossed, but like digging my nail into my hand so I would not go anywhere. And sometimes if I forgot or if I was tired, I would like go through like this tunnel, and then I would like end up in these places, and I was like, yo, you got to get back. Like, where are you? You got to get back. There's somebody here. And if you're not back and they wake up, they're going to think that, you know, it was like, it was a lot. It was so much work. It was so much work sometimes.
So that again is just giving them rules and boundaries so that like when I do group meditations online, it's the same idea in the sense that when I'm leading a meditation, I don't know where the meditation is going to go. And sometimes I'm just gone with it, but they very much know my time frame. You got to come in this time frame. And I come back. Like, it's like, okay, we're done. You know, I don't know what just happened or where, you know, for me, I go in and out so I can kind of, you know, okay, I can hear it a little bit, but like, I'll have to listen back. But I set boundaries. I'm like, all right, this is my time frame. And I trust them to end it. They do end it when I'm like, all right.
So this used to happen like when I would teach yoga. So I got to this place when I was a yoga teacher, and I realized that I don't have to like do a class anymore. And I would just show up, and I would say like, somebody say what they want to do today, and somebody would say something. And then I would like unconsciously just say, okay, you guys teach the class. And then I would something come inside me, and I would teach the class. I wouldn't even know what class it was. I don't know what I did. Like, and I would just like teach. And I did something similar because I did this lecture for Mount St. Mary's in LA on Sunday. And I was tired, and I had called in like my dad and ancestors. I was like, if y'all could help me with this lecture, just I'll open up my mouth and whatever you think, whatever wisdom. And it was interesting because at the end, I had no idea what I said. And one of the professors was like, thank you so much for all of this wisdom. And I was like, wow.
You're like, you're welcome. That was my entire team. Right.
And like there were points I remember sort of moving the presentation along, but especially when I got questions, I would just open my mouth and an answer would come out.
Mm-hmm. And I just find it so interesting how you're such an earth teacher, like with the body. And most people that this is all patterns around me, but people who teach yoga and breath work, they're like the most insane channels because you are given skill sets to ground yourself because you go so high. So
that right there, that's so key. That's one of those things that I think I don't know how to sum that up or break that down, but that what you just said is perfect. It's learning to ground yourself while you're still reaching those pinnacle.
Use your drum.
But I think I think you did it right. Like that's how I teach, and when I instruct is just let it take over. Just go. That's why it's hard when people are like, can we have an outline or plan? And I'm like,
that was so hard. when I was filming with Yoga International, they needed to have everything they like because it was like, a shot list of
Uh-huh.
my class and know what I was doing. And that was really hard because then I felt like I was kind of forced and in the way that I was teaching. It got easier and then I would like, okay, this is the outline, but I'll still flow in between, I let my body kind of memorize the shot list, and then in between stuff started coming out. But that took practice, and it was better the second time around than the first time around.
Practice. There you go. That's what it is. It's just practice. I mean, I used to, I just did a lot of practice. That's how I got used to what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Heck
You can
yeah.
channel to us anytime. We'll hold space for you to practice.
Yo, once me and Oneika were in session, and then you were like at Central Park, I think. I don't know. You're at one of your favorite parks. And I was playing the handpan, and I go, just channel. Do you remember that one session? And you channeled?
And I don't remember anything that I did.
It was like, about ancestors and trees.
I was terrified.
Oh, so bomb. It's so bomb. Yeah. It's the fear that will keep us not letting them fully in, which is good. Sometimes I put that in there so I don't leave my body. Because just like you, my sister had an 8-hour lash training 2 years ago, and she's like, "Can you be my dummy?" And I'm like, "Fuck!" Like, I wanted my lashes done, but I was like, "I'm gonna leave the table though in front of all these people." Because my sister has these magic hands, so I almost left the table, and she could see my knuckles just like you holding onto the massage table. She's like, "Don't leave." She's doing my lashes. These people are beauty experts, not like spiritual people. So I was just like,
don't leave.
Don't leave. I had to get up and go pee. I was like, wake me up right now. Like, I was like, we got to get off the table.
Yeah, she does have magic hands.
She does, man.
Yeah,
you experienced her. That's right.
Yeah, I got to experience. She was doing a facial, and I think Mal was like, "How was it?" I was like, "I don't remember." After this point, I was gone. I don't know where I went, but I was gone. And I was gone.
Wow. Crazy.
I was like, I remember seeing whales and doing like riding in the ocean, and I'm just like, where on earth did I go? And did you tell me to go there? Like, how'd I get here?
You must have. Atlantis is a big one for you. Your past life. That's crazy. God, we have so much to talk about.
I've heard this
always
before.
when we finish the podcast, we have so much.
I know. I've heard
we should talk about channeling once too. Like you guys should talk about how to channel.
How to know.
We should talk about
your
not just
experiences with channeling. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good topic.
I feel like mine was so like go, like literally it was like go.
Yeah.
I
think all of us.
And it was like, okay, go. Like I didn't have that. What I provide, like, let me teach you. Let me show you how to do this the right way. It was just like, go. I was like,
yeah, I think that's every channel, but then we learn to ground.
Yes.
Like, how do you teach intuition? I'm like, I don't teach intuition. I teach safety. Like straight up.
That right there.
Wow.
True.
Yeah.
That's a word right there.
I was telling that the other day when I teach intuition, I was like, I always tell people, I was like, the problem with intuition, or the way that so many people teach it, is we teach it outside of ourselves. And I was like, you guys have to learn to have your intuition inside yourself, which is actually more powerful than outside yourself, right? Because you get to use all of your psychic abilities and all of those tools, and grounding is so key. I had a client the other day. She was like, I feel so grounded. It was after. And I was like, yeah, because like when I heal, even it's like, I'm not just using this energy of life force up here, but it's like Mother Nature too. Like she's freaking a badass healer. Like, let's pull that Mother Nature up and empower it from above. And
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was so grounded that I go, what's wrong? I think I asked myself, I was like, what's wrong with me today? Because I'm peaceful and grounded. It was so sad.
Energy yesterday was really interesting and weird, though. Like, I think it was a
rainy.
I know we're getting.
There was a weird. Yeah, there was. I kind of stayed. I kind of like.
Are we in retrograde? Is that why?
Yeah, we're moving into retrograde. I don't know when it is, but we're also moving into new moon this week, and solar eclipse or eclipse.
Okay.
So there's a lot. I know this only because I was channeling, and I was like, oh, we're going to have this surge of energy, and it's going to come in and it's going to do blah, blah. And I was like, And I was like literally watching, like, as I was saying this, I was like seeing news headlines and all of this stuff start coming up, popping. Like, I'm watching headlines pop up before I even knew what just occurred, but like other things should be done. And I'm like, wait, why is the energy like this for the next 2 weeks? And then I was like, oh, it's new moon. But I'm gonna tell you, the next 2 weeks are gonna be insane.
In what way?
I literally, for some reason, feel like as we're moving
Here we go again.
to May, we're purging a lot of things in the collective, but I'm watching them actually, like, not just like, oh, I'm purging and let's take the little Band-Aid off and have a peek. This is like shit that I'm watching, like, we are full headlining. I don't know what that means, but I see news, I see newspapers, I see headlines just being like, bomb, like a bomb's being dropped. Word, like,
cancel clear on the bomb.
That's not what I mean, but that's what I'm trying to say.
I know what you mean.
What I'm watching energetically.
No.
All the energy cleared. Have you noticed there's been no more breaking up?
Yes. Tell me about that.
Something.
We were done talking about the mother wound.
Yeah, no, I think we were all holding stuff and us talking. There's something that happens when the three of us talk.
It's a retreat.
There is, because now I feel so much better. I'm like, oh, I'm good.
I too. I'm like, okay, we just chill. Can someone tell me
I feel so much better. I knew I would feel better talking to you two, though. Like, I knew I would. I was real low energy this morning. I was like, but I'll be fine after talking to them. But something happens when the three of us like get together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I have my therapist after this today. She's gonna be so proud of me. She'd be like, "You feel so good." I'm like, I had the podcast this morning.
Yeah, I feel great.
It's my session.
I feel so much better.
Yeah. I hope that's what the listeners feel too.
I've had my friend Nicole says that she's always like, the three of you are creating something very special, and I'm not sure what it is, but it's something happens when the three of you are together.
I think I'm on the same page as Nicole, because I'm like, we're creating something. I'm not sure what it is yet, because I thought I knew, but I don't know yet. But there is a lot going on in the state of this world that's going to start going down to go up. And there's a reason why we're meeting at this particular time. 100%. I know that. Yeah. Spirit's like, that's for sure. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So more to come.